Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Abdoel. On this occasion, I will discuss the intrinsic and extrinsic elements in the novel Salah Asuhan by Abdoel Moeis. A novel is a type of literary work in the form of prose. Novels tell a long story or story with a complex plot and diverse characters. The novel Salah Asuhan is one of the classic Indonesian novels that is still relevant today. The novel was published in 1928 and it's the first work of Abdoel Moeis, one of the pioneers of modern Indonesian literature. The novel tells the story of a love that is narrated by custom and religion. The main character in this novel is Hanafi, a young native man who is raised by a Dutch family. Hanafi meets Corrie, a Dutch girl who becomes his little friend. Hanafi and Corrie grow up and love each other, but the relationship must run aground due to religious differences. Now, first we will discuss the intrinsic elements. Intrinsic elements are elements that build literary works from within. These elements are absolute in a literary work and determine the quality of the literary work. Intrinsic elements include 1. Theme. The theme in the novel Salah Asuhan by Abdoel Moeis is the differences in culture with Western and Eastern nations. It is proven that Hanafi does not like the difference in treatment between the Bumiputra group and the European group. This makes Hanafi have a Dutch-like nature which makes him leave his regional nature, namely the Minangkabau area. 2 characters. The first is Hanafi. Hanafi is native youth from Solok, West Sumatra. He is educated and strong-minded, arrogant, emotional, and disobedient to his mother. He has a face that looks like a Dutchman, his behavior also reflects the Dutch, and he always insults his own native people. Next, Corrie. Corrie is a Dutch girl who originally lived with her father in Solo. Corrie has a beautiful face, comes from the upper class, and is educated. She also has a polite, friendly, strong attitude toward Hanafi, although a little spoiled and Hanafi's mom. Hanafi's mother, commonly called Mariam's mother, is a mother who is willing to sacrifice for her child so that he can go to school at any cost. Mrs. Mariam is always patient in dealing with her disobedient son. She is a forgiving mother and still forgives all the mistakes of Hanafi, who has disobeyed her. Next, Rapia. Rapia is a woman of Bumiputra descent from Solo, West Sumatra. She married Hanafi because of Hanafi's mother revenge on her father. Rapia has a patient nature in dealing with Hanafi even though Hanafi does not love her. Rapia is a good wife even though she has a high sense of shame. Next, Mr. Dubas. Mr. Dubas is Corrie's father who married a woman from the Bumiputra class. Corrie's father has a polite, friendly attitude towards everyone and respects the culture of the East even though he is a Westerner. But he always isolated himself from the local community. Corrie's father later died while Corrie was in Betawi. Next, Buyung, a man who helps Hanafi and Hanafi's mother. He always obeys that Hanafi says. And finally, Shafi'i. Shafi'i is the son of Hanafi's marriage to Rabia. Shafi'i is an innocent child. He knew nothing about his father and mother. The third is the plot. This novel has a forward flow. The author tells Hanafi's life story from the time he first met and became friends with the European girl until he married another girl named Rabia, who was arranged by his mother. Then he divorced Rabia and then married Corrie, the European girl who later died. After Corrie died, Hanafi also died by suicide. Language style. The language used in Salah Asuhan is Malay. In addition, there are also words in Dutch, Padang language, and Betawi language. There are also many proverbs and rhymes about advice as often spoken by Mrs. Hanafi. In this novel, majas are also used, including first parable. In the novel, there are many parables. For example, expect the bird to fly high, division in your hand to let go. Second, by association. For example, as if shot by thunderbolt, so surprised was the young man who was in love. Third, little test. For example, so that the mother of this totok kampung. Fourth, metaphor. An example of which is in the sentence, but my pleasure has been interrupted by putting the unpolished diamond. Fifth, setting. 1. Solo. The first place setting is Solo. From the excerpt above gives a clue that the story is told in Solo. Every evening, some of Solok's most famous residents gathered there to play tennis. Young and old, girls and women, Westerners and Easterners all meet there. To satisfy their hearts, playing a sport that is increasingly popular with people throughout the country, even the country. on page 1. 2. Tennis court. The second place setting is the tennis court. From the fragment of the story provides a clue that his story is told on the tennis court. The tennis court, protected by the surrounding palm trees, was too quiet. The sunlight, shaded by the leaves on the playground, was too harsh, for it was only 5 o'clock in the evening. On page 1. 3. Koto Anam. The third is Koto Anam. From the fragment of the story, above it can be concluded that the story is told in Koto Anam. Koto Anau is the village of Hanafi. Koto Anau is the nagari located in the city of Solo. Indeed, his mother was a villager and forever lived in the village alone. But out of pity for the child, he left the Gedang house in Koto Anau and lived with Hanafi in Solo. On page 23. 4. Betawi. The fourth is Betawi. From the fragment of the story, above it can be concluded that the story is told in Betawi. Hanafi has been educated in Betawi since childhood, and then he met Cory also in Betawi. From childhood, Hanafi has been educated in Betawi on page 23. Now we talk Gunung Sahari Street, Jembatan Merah, Jakarta, Cory on page 1. Next is Semarang. In this novel is told with Semarang as the background, which is in the quote above. On the next day, Hanafi had also come to the hiding house, and his heart was not artificially saddened. So, when he heard that the Cory had left, he immediately said he wanted to go down to Semarang. On page 186. Surabaya. This place setting can be seen in the quote. In Surabaya, they stayed overnight in a small pension, claiming the name Tuan and Nona Han on page 144. Next, the time setting. The time setting of Salah Asuhan is the early 20th century, when the Dutch were still in Indonesia. This can be seen from several fragments of sentences from the novel, namely, Hanafi is raised by a Dutch family which adheres to Dutch moral values and customs. Hanafi and Cory study at a Dutch school. And then the atmosphere. The setting of the novel Salah Asuhan is painful and sad. This can be seen from the love story of Hanafi and Cory, which must run aground because of religious differences. Hanafi and Cory must separate even though they love each other. On the other hand, the sad setting is also illustrated by Hanafi's disobedience to his own mother. Overall, the time setting and atmosphere of Salah Asuhan depict the life of Indonesian society during the Dutch colonial era. At that time, customs and religion were still very influential in people's lives. Indonesian society was still not independent and was still under Dutch rule. 6. Point of view. The point of view used by the author is the third person because the author only tells what the characters do, not putting himself in the story. And the author's position as the storyteller who knows everything. The third person point of view can be characterized by the use he or she. Moral message. Learning about other nation is allowed, but don't lose your nationalism in your own nation. Do not disobey your parents because it will bring misery. Man never hurt a woman's heart and feeling because it will make you miserable. Do not underestimate and trample on your own culture because you will regret it. And every day we do and live by using violence and emotion, we will get rated and fail. Furthermore, extrinsic elements. Extrinsic elements are elements that build literary works from the outside. These elements are not necessarily present in the literary work but can affect the quality of the literary work. 1. Author's background. Abdul Moeis, born in Sungai Puar, Agam, West Sumatra, on July 3, 1886, came from a prominent Minangkabau family. His father, Datuk Tumangguang Sultan Sulaiman, opposed Dutch policies in the Agam Highlands. Moeis was educated in ELS and then continued to Stovia, but did not complete his education there due to illness. Afterward, Moeis became a journalist and editor-in-chief of Kaum Muda newspaper, published by Sarekat Islam. He was also a member of the Volksraad representing Sarekat Islam. As a writer, politician, and journalist, Moeis wrote several novels, including Salah Asuhan in 1928, a love story hindered by custom and religion. This work influenced the development of Indonesian literature. Moeis was recognized as the first national hero by President Sukarno on August 30, 1959. Abdul Moeis is an influential figure in Indonesian literary and political history, contributing greatly to the development of the Indonesian nation. 2. Social background. In this wrong upbringing novel, the author wrote this word according to the circumstance of the time. The situation in question is a person who has lost his nationalism towards his own nation. This is told through the character Hanabi. And finally, the value element. The first, namely religious value. We, as children, should not disobey our parents because God Almighty will curse us if we disobey our parents. And the second, which is cultural value. Western and Eastern nation will never unite. In the past, marriage between different nations were not allowed. So there were people who loved each other, who had to run away so they could be together. But because there was no blessing on the relationship, the marriage would not last long. That's all the explanation from me about the intrinsic and extrinsic elements contained in this wrong upbringing novel by Abdul Moeis. More or less, I apologize. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.